I'm going to go ahead and give you guys a bit of a heads up. This right here is kind of a very, I have even really no idea why the outrage is even there for this one. But then again, though, the wokes kind of did it to themselves on this one. We're going to be reviewing that in this video while we're talking about Ben Stein and Rashad Richey's, response to the whole Aunt Jemima thing. But also something else too. I want you guys to kind of stick around towards the end of the video because I'm going to give you guys kind of a personal story on how it is that I came to the current level of faith that I have. With that there being said, let's go ahead and get into it. Of all people, of all people, Ben Stein, the guy who said Bueller, clear eyes guy, that guy right there has somehow or another found a way to piss off the woke mob.
Breakfast for dinner, Aunt Jemima yummy pancake syrup. Now, this used to show a large African American woman chef, but because of the inherent racism of Americans' corporate culture, they decided to make it a white person or maybe no person at all. But I prefer it when it's a black person showing their incredible skill at making pancakes.
All this because some people did not like the idea of a woman of color being on a pancake label. I probably should not be doing this, but before we do this, I'm going to go ahead and ask you guys right now to go ahead and hit that like button. Also, go ahead and subscribe and go ahead and share the video. The reason why is because I just now realized something. For a second there, I thought that the pancake syrup that I had in the pantry was log cabin. Then I realized it's actually Aunt Jemima. So that means that there are some Aunt Jemima pancake syrups out there that still have the actual Aunt Jemima on the front. I just figure I would throw that out there. Apparently here in North Carolina we still sell them, but then again though, now that I done mentioned it, obviously some wokes are going to get pissed off and they're going to get a little bit triggered. So Ben Stein, the guy who used to do the Clear Eyes commercials, the same guy who played in Ferris Bueller's Day Off. By the way, a lot of people don't realize this about Ben Stein, but Ben Stein was actually a speechwriter for Richard Nixon, and he's actually even though he's a very, very boring guy, or at least he always plays one, he's actually a very, very smart guy. As I'll show you guys here very shortly. Very, 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 very smart guy. And I'm pretty sure that the person I'm about to mention here, Rashad Richey from TY2, who, by the way, probably got the most triggered from this. I'm pretty sure if these two had an actual honest-to-God debate, it would be a very, very good discussion. But let me go ahead and kind of break down what the hell's going on here. So the woke mob is pissed off because Ben Stein essentially wants some pancake syrup, or essentially he wanted to have breakfast. And he decided to cook breakfast at night. And, of course, he wanted to kind of make a point and kind of send it out there that people who, by the way, of color, got Aunt Jemima, a person of color, removed from Aunt Jemima pancake syrup. They also, in some areas, got Uncle Ben removed as well. Look, we did a whole series on this a while back, how it was that the whole wokes and woke capitalism and woke corporations were kind of doing the whole Jim Crow thing, even though they did not know that they were actually doing it, which in reality is kind of code for, yeah, they did kind of know that they were doing it because, they had these little signs that said black owned, black this, black that right there. And I was kind of sitting there thinking to myself, I was like, man, does it really and truly matter? I mean, dude, I like Goya, which is Hispanic owned, Hispanic run. They do produce some good things. I don't buy it very often, but I've had Goya before and it's very, very good. Old El Paso, I think that's actually from the U.S., kind of a knockoff. But Stubbs is black owned. I mean, just a very, very good chicken burger. Does that stuff even really and truly matter? Oh, wait. It does matter to the wokes. The same people who, for whatever reason, chose to cancel Hattie McDaniel, the first black actress to win an Academy Award because the movie Gone with the Wind portrayed slavery in a certain light, even though, of course, Hattie McDaniel, like I said before, was the first black actress to win an Academy Award. But, of course, the wokes don't seem to know this because the wokes are always ill-informed. Then we enter this funny-looking man that we're about to speak about here. Now, guys, I'm going to roll this, but I want you guys to pay very, very close attention to what he says because these people really and truly, it's almost like a great big giant clown show at this point.
Ben Stein is a Karen. Ben Stein is volunteering these comments. He has said there has never been He has said there has never been such an atmosphere of racial dictatorship. We've never experienced this before. Really, Ben? You do know it was illegal for black people to sit on a bus where they chose. It was against the law for black folks to eat inside of a restaurant. And black people could be brutally attacked by the police with no penalty. Well, that's still happening. So when Ben Stein says he's never seen anything like this before, you know, Ben, first of all, I had no idea you were racist. But I do encourage you at some point, I think your mind is sharp enough. Join me in the bullpen, dear sir. Let's talk about your proclamation. All right, Sharon, thoughts here.
Dr. Richey, don't do that. I know he'd be a good man. He doesn't want that smoke. And you know, come on now, Dr. Richey, that's too easy for you. It's too easy for you. I can't even remember what the movie was called, his most famous one. Was it Bueller? Is that him?
Yeah, that's the one.
That was a long time ago, okay? Yeah. No more syrup for you.
Ben Stein is a Karen. Ben Stein is not a Karen. If anything, he just plays an extremely boring person. And he's absolutely correct. You see, let me break this down for you guys, okay? And I know I'm kind of responding here off the cuff here, unscripted. But let me say this really quick. Racism right now is only an issue to people who, quite frankly, are racist. Let me break it down for you. You see, one of the ways that racism kind of found its way to kind of like be faded out of society or kind of like not be spoken about or kind of be faded away is because people at the end of the day just eventually stop talking about it. You see, the more and more you bring this crap up, the worse and worse and worse it's going to get. Also, something else too, what you guys don't seem to understand is that by constantly calling old whitey a racist and all that type of stuff there, what you're really doing is you're alienating potential friends and you're kind of closing your own circle off. You're actually making your circle much shorter, which, by the way, is kind of a very dumb thing to do, especially if you're trying to like get friends or anything. You don't catch bees with you don't catch friends with honey, okay? You don't catch bees with vinegar. You catch them with honey. I know that came out wrong, but it's just the way that it is. You don't throw pure venom at people and expect them to suddenly become friends with you. I have actually said this earlier, but Stein is actually an extremely smart person. Definitely a lot smarter than the people at TYT, especially a lot smarter than the guy with the bat-looking weird face, Rashad Richey, with the messed-up-looking mustache. Guys, I'm going to show you guys this little clip right here. It's about 4 minutes long to kind of give you an idea of exactly who Ben Stein really and truly is, what type of man he really and truly is. He's actually a very intelligent person. And, of course, this bears a little discussion that he had with Richard Dawkins. You know, the same guy who comes from that same cut of cloth that's very secular, that hates us Christians. Let me just kind of roll this. I hope you guys pay very close attention to this. I want you guys actually see exactly what's actually being exchanged here. And you can kind of see exactly how morally bankrupt some of these people really
when they give up God, feel a great sense of release and freedom.
Why do you think that? I mean, what's your dad? What's your scientist? What's your dad?
I think, I've had a lot of letters saying that, and
There are 8 billion people in the world, Dr. Dawkins. How many letters have you had?
No, I haven't done that. That's quite true.
Professor Dawkins seemed so convinced that God doesn't exist that I wondered if he would be willing to put a number on it.
Well, it's hard to put a figure on it, but I mean, I'd put it as something like, 99% against or something.
Well, how do you know it's 99%?
I don't.
Say not 97%.
No, I did. You asked me to put a figure on it, and I'm not comfortable putting a figure on it. I just think it's very unlikely.
What? But you couldn't put a number on it?
No, of course not.
So it could be 49%.
Well, it would be. I mean, I think it's unlikely, but it's quite far from 50%.
How do you know?
I don't know. I mean, I put an argument in the book.
Well, then who did create the heavens and the earth?
Why do you use the word who? You see, you immediately beg the question by using the word who.
Well, then how did it get created?
Well, by a very slow process.
Well, how did it start?
Nobody knows how it started. We know the kind of event that it must have been. We know the sort of event that must have happened for the origin of life.
And what was that?
It was the origin of the first self-replicating molecule.
Right, how did that happen?
I told you we don't know.
So you have no idea how it started?
No, nor has anybody.
Nor has anyone else. What do you think is the possibility that intelligent design
might turn out to be the answer to some issues in genetics or in evolution?
It could come about in the following way. It could be that at some earlier time, somewhere in the universe, a civilization evolved by probably some kind of Darwinian means to a very, very high level of technology and designed a form of life that they seeded onto perhaps this planet. Now, that is a possibility and an intriguing possibility. And I suppose it's possible that you might find evidence for that if you look at the details of biochemistry, molecular biology. You might find a signature of some sort of designer.
Wait a second. Richard Dawkins thought intelligent design might be a legitimate pursuit?
And that designer could well be a higher intelligence from elsewhere in the universe.
Well,
but that higher intelligence would itself have had to have come about by some explicable or ultimately explicable process. It couldn't have just jumped into existence spontaneously. That's the point.
So Professor Dawkins was not against intelligent design, just certain types of designers, such as God. So the Hebrew God, the God of the Old Testament, he doesn't exist in your view?
Certainly. I mean, that would be a very unpleasant prospect.
And the Holy Trinity of the New Testament,
nothing like that.
Do you believe in any of the Hindu gods? Like Vishnu?
How can you ask such a question?
You don't,
How could I? I mean, why would I, given that I don't believe in any others?
You don't believe in the Muslim God?
No. I mean, why do you even need to ask?
Well, I just wanted to be sure. So you don't believe in any God anywhere?
Any God anywhere would be completely incompatible with anything that I've said.
I assume. Yeah. I just wanted to make sure you don't believe in any God anywhere.
No.
What if after you died you ran into God? He said, "What have you been doing, Richard? I mean, what have you been doing? I've been trying to be nice to you. I gave you a multi-million-dollar paycheck over and over again with your book, and look what you did."
Bertrand Russell had that point put to him, and he said something like, "Sir, why did you take such pains to hide yourself?"
But if the intelligent design people are right, God isn't hidden. We may even be able to encounter God through science, if we have the freedom to go there. What could be more intriguing than that?
Now, gang, once again, I showed you guys that there for a reason. Ben Stein, for as boring as a character as he plays, he's not a man without substance. He's actually a pretty smart person. And obviously, these people, these wokes, are not exactly what we call people of substance. Now, guys, speaking of the fact that I just did a video a while ago talking about Bible prophecy, which, by the way, don't worry, that video will come out first because obviously we've had this little sign of the times of the church kind of going a little bit woke, and don't worry, there'll even be projects on that in the future. And, of course, this is a video before the weekend. I wanted to discuss this because I think it is very important. I think you guys need to know exactly how it is that I came to the conclusions that I came when it came to the whole topic of God. Guys, for the most part, my entire life, I've always believed in God, okay? For the most part, is because I grew up in a very, very staunch Christian home. Of course, there was a bit of a straying away. My parents divorced, and I went through a bit of a bad streak, a bit of a bad seed streak, especially when we split up. It was just mostly acting out, being immature, and quite frankly, being an idiot. That really is, for the most part, what it was. I joined the Marines. For whatever reason, I began to question my faith, even lost my faith, probably even did some blasphemous crap myself. Even at one point in time during my second deployment, felt like I wasn't going to come home. Very, very weird. Now, I'm not going to get totally personal here, but this is funny because I am getting personal here. What happened was that when I got into my late 20s, after a lot of alcohol, after a lot of partying, and after a lot of changes in life, I began to think about things from a different point of view. I was like, what exactly is wrong with my life? And of course, I had to sit back and go back and actually look at things. And one of the things that I noticed is the anxiety levels were very, very high, and I began to worry. Now, guys, I did talk about this in the whole why the left and mental illness are synonymous. And of course, I could have very, very easily turned into that type. I know it may strike you guys as very, very weird, but for all you guys know, I could have ended up becoming exactly like Rashad Richey and these crazy people who react and respond to try to get clicks and, I don't know, the race baiters who love to kind of, just create division in the country. But the fact of the matter is this right here. after a while, I realized that there were some things going on in my life. And to tell you the truth, I never really and truly lost the belief in God, especially not the existence. However, what I did lose is I kind of lost my faith in him. And then finally, after a while, I started to see some things, which, by the way, kind of brought me back to God himself. That kind of made me start going back to him and actually asking. And then I realized something. And it's very, very weird because it was actually a television show where I heard this little phrase. The phrase was "let go, let God." Now that phrase, believe it or not, came from a TV show that I binge watched, which, by the way, I regret binge watching. It was the show Jersey Shore, and I want to say it was the last season. It was the character of Vinny got the tattoo saying "let go, let God." It's been years ago. Now, I didn't think about that until a few years later, and then I realized that most of the problems in my life. You see, the reason why my faith was I was questioning my faith, is because it felt like I was asking for things, and what I realized was I was asking for the wrong things. I was asking for material things, and material things are not the most important things in life. And I realized that right there was the problem that I had. I was very, very much a material person, and I had kind of sort of had my head up my own ass. That's basically what happened. What happened was I actually had to step back, take a look at some things, and I kind of sat there and thought about a series of things that had happened in my life. Normally, it's like one event that changes somebody or one event that happens. You think that, but that's not the case. Normally what happens is it's a series of ordeals that occur that eventually kind of lead you to a certain conclusion. And the conclusion that I had was let go of all the stress and let God. Of course, I was told by my father back when he was alive, just lay it at his feet. You'd be surprised. It was in that moment there when that happened that my faith officially became secure, and my faith has not been shaken since. I just figured I would share that little story with you guys. Guys, John Claymore here. If you like the content, hit the like button, subscribe, share the video, sign up in the comment section, and I'll see you guys later.